Um, So anyways, what's going on here, right? Like what's happening in this particular Psalms. So why am I bringing this on? Because this idea of a couple things. One, people knowing the creator, right? Second is people fearing the creator, right? These are the two major themes, right? And through in between this whole process, the whole world will rejoice, the whole world will be singing. So what's going on? What we're saying is that this process of becoming, this process of evolution, right? This process is not the idea of saying, oh yeah, God exists, right? God exists, God's in the sky, and if we do bad, he's going to judge us, and if we do good, he's going to reward us, right? That's not what we're talking about here. What we're talking about is this idea of saying that being able to recognize the creator, right? To know that the creator is everywhere and everything, right? And this idea of fearing the creator is not the fear of like saying like, oh, you know, Shem's going to come and punish me and these types of things, you know, whatever. It's like, no, it's in the same point. It's this total acknowledgement. It's a state of awe, right? In the second chapter of my book, Mind of the Black Jew, I talk about this concept of the 1% reality and the 99% reality, right? And the 1% reality is everything we see, we connect to with our five senses, but there's a whole 99% behind that, right? And we use quantum physics in that book, Mind of the Black Jew, to explain the mechanism of how it works, right? How this idea that I only see 1% of reality, and then, you know, but there's a whole world going on around me, and the scientists refer to as string theory or whatever. In the last class, we talked about the 10 dimensions that the world is built upon, right? And these 10 dimensions that the world is built upon, right, is not per se, it's an expression of the creator, right? And we're saying that original light that the world is created with is disseminated every single second, every moment of our lives. This is what keeps the world functioning, that God is constantly giving over light to this reality. And if God ever ceased, everything would fall, everything would just go away. The question is, the system that we're talking about now, which is these 10 dimensions, was something that our sages gave us insight to, right? Which we trace all the way to the first verse of the Torah, Bereshit bara Elohim et Hashemayim va'aretz. We explained that within there's a secret code that explains the 10 different dimensions. But the point is to say like this. The point is to say like this is that the matrix of these 10 dimensions, what we refer to as the 10 spherot, right? These dimensions that we refer to in this way, these dimensions are the expression and the understanding of the 99%, one aspect, right? Because there's many, we referred to it last week, we talked about the Parsufim, we didn't go so deep into that, but it's just like spiritual structures. So one of the spiritual structures that we understand God's benevolence is through these 10 dimensions, right? Keter, Chokmah, Bina, Hesed, Gevurah, Tiferet, Netzach, Hod, and Yesod. That's one frame of reference. Then you have another frame of reference, which is Chokmah, Bina, Dat. Hesed, Gevurah, Tiferet, Netzach, Hod, Yesod, and Malchut. Now, the top three in the seven beneath it represents different spiritual structures. One is more connected to the supernal heavens, and then one is connected to the lower heavens, right? That makes sense. A lot of this stuff you need background for, but I think you could get the idea, right? You get the base idea, and always remember, whatever you don't understand intellectually, your soul always knows. Your soul knows all the truth. Your soul was given the entire Torah in your mother's womb, as we talked about in prior classes, when you're a baby, before you're born. And we came from the endless world. Our souls come from an endless world reality where we had all of God's knowledge, all of the connection to Hashem. And so when the world broke, when those original vessels restricted their ability to receive God's light because they wanted to be like the creator and give light themselves, they created this world that we live in, right? So our souls have all the knowledge. So all we're doing is basically chazara for our neshama, right? This is what this whole thing is. So with that being said, the spiritual structures that we have through our sages, through the Kabbalah, allows us to be able to understand the mechanisms that's going on around us. So the 10 dimensions is a dynamic of God's revealment of his light into this world, and how each level is kind of like a filter that perfects that light all the way down to our ability to receive and manifest it, which is the 10th level, which is Malchut, right? And all these things, when we get into them, all the different levels, specifically the bottom 7, all are connected to different characters in the Torah. And if you understand who these characters are, like, for example, Hesed, right, is connected to Abraham, right? Abraham, right? So all the different characters are also expressions of different lights, right? So when reading the Torah, you're not just reading a book of stories, you're literally reading how the cosmic universe is designed and how it functions and how we function in it. These are energies that are, yes, they're characters, yes, they're real people, but the perfection of how they express themselves and how they interacted, that perfection that they express inside of the Torah is a specific light. For example, that under Hesed you have Gevurah, right? What is Gevurah? It's Isaac. What is underneath Gevurah? Tiferet. Jacob, Israel, right? So all these things play specific points and have really, really, really important meanings. But right now, what we're trying to do is we're trying to discover what is reality, right? Because you could ask the question, why is it important to understand the 99%? Why is it important to look around and to understand that everything we receive, every energy that's transferred is expressing itself through a process, through a protocol? In the same way, all the things that I see physically. The sages teach that Abraham was able to come to the understanding of the Creator because he looked at nature. He watched how the ants functions, the insects, how the stars, the suns, the rotations, the consistencies, the day, the night, the whole thing. And he was able to contemplate and eventually get to a place where he saw the oneness of everything. And through the oneness of everything and the synchronicity of everything, he was able to come to this conclusion that there's a centralized source that's providing all of this functionality and all of this light, to, all of creation. And that was the beginning of monotheism, right? Where we're at today, this contemplation of understanding that Hashem is one, Hashem is Echad, that understanding comes from Abraham's contemplation. Obviously, it existed before. It existed with Noah. It existed with the generations between Noah all the way to Adam, right? And Adam's sons, some people say Melchizedek, right, was Shem, right? So all these different people, had this understanding, but Abraham was able to get to this conclusion on his own, which was the impetus of his spiritual journey. And he met other teachers, he met different people. So the knowledge of God existed in the world before Abraham. However, Abraham was able to bring it into a functional system, which eventually led to his descendants bringing down the Torah on Mount Sinai, which was the ultimate system that expressed a nation and abilities for cohesiveness amongst people on a soul level. So again, back to reality. But why is these 10 dimensions important, right? Because the 10 dimensions, or even the idea of the unseen world, right? Some people put it, or this idea of the concealed reality, right? If we're not aware of that, we don't even know why we feel what we feel or why we do what we do, right? We're just reacting on, say, different impulses, and we don't even know why. Like you may all of a sudden you may wake up with super energy and you're excited and you're ready to go. But if you didn't contemplate, like, what created this experience? Was it the fact that I just slept well, right? Is it really about me sleeping well? Well, I should sleep well every night if I could wake up like this. Or is there something specifically spiritually that I did that I may not even be aware of before? Or two, is there something going on in the universe, right? Because if we have different days throughout the year that are holy, right? We have Rosh Hashanah coming up. We have the month of Elul. We just got out of Tu B'Av. We have the 9th of Av. We have all these different days. Some days we mourn. Some days we're celebrating with happiness. Some days we're repenting. Some days we're asking God to give us an amazing year. You know what I mean? So if we can accept that different days have different energies, and on these different energies we can tap into them through our behavior, right, through our actions, then we accept that every single day has different energies and different influences on us. And we could tap into those days too. Now there's super days, right? And once we go into the 7 days of creation, we'll really go into how these days were designed, right? From the beginning of creation, that there are going to be certain days of powerful revealment and dissemination on planet Earth, right? But the key to this idea is that because we have limited senses in this finite, reality that we're in, then we need the Torah, and we need our sages, and we need the people who've expounded on the depth of the Torah to explain this reality to us. Because with our limited perception, if we just read the Torah on our own, we could come up with all types of conclusions. But it's only through the Jewish prophets, it's only through the Jewish sages, that the people that the Torah, the descendants of the people that the Torah was given to, that we could crack open this reality, and not just to look in a book, but to look around us and to understand that everything that you see around you has a spark of the Creator in it. And that's why it has the shape and the function that it does. Whether it's a dirt rock, whether it's a table, whether it's a cloud, whether it's a bird, it doesn't matter. Everything has a spark of the Creator. And the spark of the Creator is what allows it to have its form, its functionality. Or you have other things that don't even have physical form, like matter and molecules and all these things that you can't even see, right? But they also have a function and form. So what we're saying is that all of that you see is an expression of Hashem's light. And that expression of Hashem's light is disseminated, right? Is disseminated through these different portals of dimension. So it can perfect itself and refine itself for its specific entity. So that blade of grass has a specific light that comes to it. The dirt rock has a specific light that comes to it. The homeless guy on the street, that specific light comes to him. The baby who was just born, the baby in his mother's womb, the cells, the molecules, everything that makes you into who you are as a human is there because there's a force of the Creator. And so the Torah teaches us that we can increase that. We can increase that light inside of our lives. We can increase this thing. The Torah starts with this idea. The first time God speaks in the Torah, it says, Vayomer Elohim ve'ahi or ve'ahi or. This is exactly when God spoke, and the first thing he spoke was, let there be light. This is the third pasuk, right? Let there be light. So what is this light that we're talking about? Because later, it's not till much later, days later, that the sun and the moon are created. So what is this light? What's going on? This is the light, the original light that the world was created with. And that original light that the world was created with, the disseminations of that light is what we're talking about. How do we connect to? We're not talking about how to connect to the sun's light or the moonlight, right? We're not talking about that. We're talking about the original light that the world was created with, right? And so when we get in that frame of reference and we get in that thought process, then we can start rearranging the reality that we live in. Because if we don't rearrange that, we're just subject to whatever impulse, influence, idea, inspiration, desperation, whatever, panic, fear, whatever, and we have no control of ourselves. We're just responding all day, 24 hours. We see this commercial, I saw a really interesting interview. I'm not saying I'm a fan of this person at all, but I just look at different people and see what they're saying. So there was a guy, Andrew Tate, I think his name is, and he's like, he's like one of these real pro-masculine type men, and we're losing our male thing, and he has a big following. He's a very popular guy on social media, whatever. Anyways, long story short, he got incarcerated, right? I think maybe they said it was false charges and he was let out. I don't know the whole story, but it was a period of time that he had to go to jail, and they put him in solitary confinement. And he said something that was interesting. He said, one of the things that the most difficult part about being in jail for that time in solitary confinement, he said, because you had to own and deal with your thoughts. He said, if you had a thought that you don't like normally in life, he said, you have a thought, say you're sitting somewhere and you have a thought that you don't like, right? Well, if you don't like the thought or you feel a certain way, there's so many things you can do to change that thought. You could go and get something to eat. Now that we have cell phones, you could be on there. You could go leave the room. You could call somebody on the phone. All types of stuff. We have music, right? Playlist, the whole thing, right? So we can control. We find ways to control or to deal with these influences that we have. He said, but when you're in solitary confinement, you can't run away from it. You have to deal with that thought. There's nowhere to go. You can't, start talking to someone in the cell next to you. You can't, start, doing some type of hobby or whatever. You know what I mean? You're in a cell and it's like a steel thing and there's no one around but you, right? You get food a couple times a day. You're not even allowed to go outside, I don't think, right? So, or if you do, it's for a limited amount of time. But the point is just saying, so that was the biggest challenge, right? So in life, when we talk about ourselves and we talk about what we are and what we want to do in life, then we're in the same situation, right? Because we don't want to have to run from what we experience. We want to know why we're experiencing it. We don't want to just be the effect. We want to be connected to the cause, right? And so in order to start that conversation of transforming thought and transforming how we see ourselves, we have to rearrange reality. We have to rearrange how we perceive reality. What we see is good and what we see is bad and what we see is good in between. We have to be clear on that, because being clear on that will allow us to take control over ourselves and to show how much power that we have and how much beauty we have and how much determination we have. You see, the one time you see it is when people overcome addictions, right? They go to different programs, they do this, different things, and they overcome addictions. But they got to a point where they understand that the addiction is not them. The addiction is something outside of them that they have to deal with. It's like the serpent in the Garden of Eden, the Nachash. The Nachash was outside of them, but in a way had a control over them, had a power, had an influence. So we all have the Nachash in our life somewhere, right? That Nachash exists, that outside influence that has a power over us. But it always leads to good. But you have to deal with it. You have to overcome it. You have to do tshuva, right? You have to connect to real high energy sometimes. Sometimes you have to restrict. Some people fast, all types of things people do to break habits. They're consistent. They break laziness, complacency. So this whole process of gaining this power over ourselves comes from this idea of being able to understand that there's a whole 99% reality all around me. That it's all around me and everything that exists around me is only a 1% of it. It's like you meet a person, right? You meet a person, amazing person, a beautiful person. But you know what? That person has a soul that you can't see. That's the 99% of that person. The 1% of that person is the physicality. That goes for everything. The reason why we don't have world peace is because we're only at the 1% of analyzing the problems that we have in society. We're not dealing with the soul. We're not incorporating the soul. We're just looking at what people say and what people do, and that's it. We don't think about the fact that that soul is being reincarnated many times. We don't think about the fact that maybe that soul is not receiving the light that it needs. Maybe we're not perceiving that the structure and the environment that the people live in is creating a darkness, a judgment that's affecting their soul. We're not thinking about that. All we're doing is thinking about the 1% reality. That person committed a crime, let's throw them into jail. This person has an addiction, let's put them into rehab, right? This person is good at math, put them in this classroom. But who the individual is and what that individual needs, it's not even discussed. It's not discussed. Only a part of that person. Analogy I used last week or maybe the week before, or not maybe the class, whatever, is this idea of saying that, just imagine if I have my body, you see my body. So say this is, if the screens will come backwards. So this is my left side, right? So imagine if all I did was wash the left side of my body. So from here all the way down, I only wash that side of the body. And then my right side, of my body, I never washed because the society that I live in never spoke about washing the whole body. It only taught me in elementary, was it how you say kindergarten, elementary, middle school, high school, college. They only taught me about the idea of only washing. Postgraduate, got you guys in there, and so they only taught me how to wash one side of my body. That's it, one side of my body. So the other side of my body never got washed. So what's going to happen over time? This side of my body, the left side of my body is going to start developing diseases. It's going to start developing, other, hygienic issues. It's going to have certain, maybe wounds, things that are not attended to, whatever. But the point is saying, because I'm only focusing on one side of my body, it brings destruction to the other side. It brings disease to the other side. It brings an aspect of famine to the other side, right? And so this process of understanding that we have a soul is taking our soul or our intellect out of the famine, right? Because we're not functioning correctly. We're only living in one aspect of our existence. So this is the basis of the idea of connecting to the 99%, right? That reality of the 99%, it explains everything because there's so many different systems. It's not just 10 dimensions. There's within those 10 dimensions, there's different structures that express how people connect, say, to the opposite sex, how people connect to nature, how people connect to past lives, how people connect to the future, all these different things. We have the ability to connect to in a much more efficient level by having these systems of thought, right? Just like we're able to measure something with a ruler, right? Or other types of measurement devices in a physical sense. This is what we have for the spiritual world as well. We have measurement tools. So going further in this conversation, it's kind of like a precursor to go more in depth in this idea of this idea of the unseen reality, the 99% reality, the revealment of the concealed reality, right? All those things that are happening around us, this is what we're building into. Because we're more than just what we see with the eye. The world is more than what we see than with the eye. But the question is, how do we start to readjust our intellect and our mindset to be able to engage with that world that's beyond our five senses? How do we build additional senses, right? In Judaism, we have this idea of doing a blessing, a bracha, different things. Most, when we eat, different things. So what's going on? The bracha connects us to that 99%. It actually draws that light, like in a way you would draw water from a well, right? That bracha draws that light. Then that light that's drawn is now in conjunction with the 1% reality, which is that physical food. So now you did your own personal ve'ahi or, and you connected it to haaretz, right? The earth, right? The heavens and the earth. You connected those two things together, and then that's what your body ingested, right? And there's many things like that. We do blessings on the days, different days we do blessings on, all types of stuff. It's all about drawing that light. And this is why the Jewish people have been able to survive and endure and go through the biggest challenges, because we're not just people of the physical, we're the people of the spiritual. But what does that mean? That means that we are nourishing our soul and our body together. And this is our whole thing, is bringing the physical and the spiritual together. When a man and a woman are intimate together, right? It's not just an act. It's not a workout, It's not just, some type of physical, expression of the ultimate pleasure, which it is, but it's not just that. It's not just that. It's also this idea of drawing a powerful light into this world. That's why the Torah is so specific on sex and how you should and when you should and with who you should and what you shouldn't do, because it draws such a powerful light into this world. So when people have it and the woman is not in a clean state, or a man his mind is not focused on the person he's with, these are very destructive things. So there's this very specific technology on how to draw that light. But guess what? The TVs that we see, the shows that we watch, the movies that we watch, the books that we're reading, now all ages are teaching that, intimacy is just something you just do physically, that it has no real value other than the physical pleasure it provides, right? But we're saying over here, like, no, sex is spiritual. It brings down a light. It brings down a holiness. It brings down a koach, a power. So when a man goes out and he abuses that, or a woman goes out and they abuse it and they use it just for the instrument of their self alone, their pleasure, they are going against the purpose of creation, because the purpose of creation was for them to come and remove the selfishness, which is the receiving for just myself. They're here to remove that. They were here to be like the Creator, to share. So only through the tools and the technology of the Torah can we transform our thinking to become entities of sharing, even in the most pleasurable and the easiest place to be selfish, which is intimacy. We want to bring down this light. We want to create children. We want to be able to be sharers. We want to fulfill the mitzvah of Puravu. Right? This is the dynamic, but it has to come from a place of spirituality. Why doesn't it just say multiply? It says be fruitful. That's a whole big conversation, fruitful and multiply. What does it mean to be fruitful? Right? Just multiply. Right? So the point is just saying we're moving forward with this idea, but we have to understand that all the challenges and all the pain and suffering we've seen and we've experienced in our own life is because we've been looking at reality through the lenses of the 1% reality alone. And we're saying to get to this expanded consciousness, that we see prophets like David HaMelech, right, who's able to look into the future and see things. Abraham Avinu, Yitzhak Avinu, Yaakov Avinu, Moshe, Yosef HaSadiq, Moshe Rabbeinu, Aaron HaKohen. All these people achieve these levels of expanded consciousness. And they were able to see things in the physical, even in the future and even in the past, right? But we have the ability to do that at our own level, not like them, but like us. You don't want to be like anyone else. You want to be like yourself. You want to be able to fulfill your mission. Moshe Rabbeinu already did what he did. Avraham Avinu already did what he did. They're there to give us strength and guidance through the wisdom and the teachings they left with us, and even the energy of Abraham Avinu and Moshe. That energy still exists in the world. All the righteous people who did amazing things, their energy still exists in this world, and we can tap into it. But the ultimate understanding is that everything comes from Hashem. Everything comes from God Almighty, the creator of the universe. That's where it comes from. But in order to get to that place where we have a relationship with the creator, we have to move past this level of only seeing things with the 1% reality. We have to get past that. When you see people, here's an exercise. When you see people walking down the street, or when you talk to somebody today, tomorrow, whatever, ask yourself, what is unique about this person? This person has a soul. What I'm talking to is only an expression of this person's soul. This soul came in this world to share, to transform itself. And most important, this soul comes from the same source as my soul. And in this endless reality, all of our souls were together before we came into this world. Right? So the exercise is to communicate and want to have a sense of connection to this other person's soul by acknowledging that they have one. And acknowledging that you have one. Just acknowledge it. That's all you have to do. Well, I'm talking to this person, but this is only the 1% of this person. This person has the 99%, which is their soul. And the same thing goes for me. That person's only talking to my 1% reality, which is the physical makeup that I have, but I also have the soul, which is concealed to this person. So that acknowledgement is the beginning of expanded consciousness. And the same thing goes with animals. When we see animals, that animal has a soul, has a nefesh chaya, right? The Torah says, how do I know the Torah says? I have a neshama. Our souls are different, But when we go into the dynamic of the soul, I even have an aspect of myself, which is called the nefesh, which is also connected to this other creature. Now I have higher levels of my soul where I'm not limited to just that reality as they are. That's why man is at the highest in the kingdoms created by God. But nevertheless, this is the connection. So the bracha to everybody as we keep moving forward is to start this process of communicating with people and acknowledging that I'm only talking to the 1% of this person and there's a 99%. I, myself, the person that they're talking to, which is me or you, they're only communicating with the 1%, not the 99%. And all the animals and all the living creatures that I see also have the same dynamic. Now we're going to get into other things, like the material things that seemingly don't have life. Even they exist, right? And being able to do that all the way to the rocks, right? So the mineral kingdom, plant kingdom, animal kingdom, human kingdom. We want to walk around every day, and we want to be able to say, hey, you know what? That's only 1% of that reality. All right? That's only 1% of that reality. There's a 99% there, and I can't see with my 5 senses, but the fact that I acknowledge that it exists, now I'm seeing it. You understand? The fact that I'm acknowledging that it exists, now I'm able to, now there's a framework. But we got to talk more about this. We got to grow. So have a great week. Obviously, we're going to keep this conversation going throughout the week. On Tuesday, we have an amazing conversation with Rav Elazar Demota. And he just recently is a PhD, he's a doctor, and he's going to be talking to us about his recent trip to Africa, to Nigeria. He was in Igbo land with the Igbos, which is a huge conversation. Many African Americans descend from this, and it's a part of missing history that many of the people who were sold in transatlantic slave trade were Igbo Jews. And when they came to America, their identities and their histories were removed away from them systematically. So we want to recapture that awareness, and we want to bring that awareness to as many people as possible. And we want to make it a social justice issue, that this should be incorporated into academia, all the way from K through 12 to universities. And everywhere Black Studies is taught internationally, this should also be part of it. So anyway, so we have a lot of things, but more importantly right now is rearranging our thinking, because rearranging our thinking is going to allow us to get to a higher level of pleasure, a higher level of connection, a more holistic elevation. And we keep learning, and we should get there together.